My name is Hans Eric Melin. I'm Managing Director of Circular Energy Storage. We are consultants, and mainly we actually collect data. We collect data on the end-of-life market of lithium-ion batteries. So when I accepted this speech, I realized I just got this title, and Alex asked me if it was all right, and yeah, of course it is. But then I actually looked at it, and maybe should have looked twice. The first reason is that it doesn't say anything about batteries. I will talk about batteries. So if you're not interested in batteries, then or the materials that sit inside, it might not be interested for you. There you go. Secondly, circular economy. Usually we talk about circular economy for products, not necessarily about minerals. And I will try to explain why in this talk. Again, circular energy storage, what we do, I won't bring up a slide here or anything, but we collect granular data of all batteries, all lithium-ion batteries that are placed on the market. So we know really what has been out there for over 20 years. And we do a lot of research into how these batteries are used and how they eventually will come back and what will happen with them, whether they will be reused or recycled. So there has been a lot of talk about recycling the latest 5 years, not least because lithium-ion batteries were kind of alleged to not be able, that we could not recycle them. That was one of the dark side of the EV stories, that now we are building up mountains of waste. But then this has been changing over time, and we are now in a narrative saying that now recycling will solve all this. So now we will get all the batteries from, all the battery material from recycling. And it's very important to not make the same mistake as we did before, and that we, again, now are doing this in a sustainable way. And this is obviously, I mean, in many ways, it's a game changer, because we are mining material that we now will be able to keep in the loop, just like we do with other metals. That has not been possible with oil. So of course, in that sense, it's a game changer. But it's also a transition that will take a lot of time. However, this positive notes has really been taken notice about this from politicians, from financiers, and we have had huge, phenomenal development in terms of investments in recycling companies, especially in the US, very much in China, and also here in Europe. So we see a huge expansion of recycling capacity. In China, we already have a huge recycling capacity. And a little bit, it's really based on this narrative that mining, fine, absolutely, but first we have to recycle, which I will try to argue here that is a kind of weird way of looking at what we are doing right now, what is happening. So this is our numbers from in terms of what capacity that is out there, or what is planned capacity. So the two blue lines are the pre-processing capacity, that where you take a battery and you make that into a material that later can be processed either as what we call black mass or an alloy that can later be hydrometallurgically processed. So you have the material recovery and pre-processing in the blue lines, and the green line is the expected material, both from end-of-life batteries and production scrap in North America. If I would turn this into Europe, it would almost look the same. And in China, it would look the same. In fact, I really like the shape of it, because I really think it's very much like this. And I think this is what we hardly talk about. There's two things we are not talking a lot about, I think, in the battery industry. One is cost. We only talk about cost when it comes to electric cars, that they are too expensive to buy. And still we are worried about China selling too cheap cars to us. And the other thing we are not really talking about is how much, in recycling sector, how much batteries are there actually to recycle? Because there seems to be an inevitable pool out there of recycle. And of course, if we have had the narrative for a long time saying that recycle did not happen, everything went to landfill. So of course, everybody had they have like 10 phones in their drawers and just go out and collect them. We have had a phenomenal growth of lithium-ion batteries. We have actually been able to recycle these since the early days. The early days, it's not really present here. We started using lithium-ion batteries in the early 90s. And as you can see, you can barely see the 2000 to 2010 when we now look at where we actually are going. I think everyone can, without being too educated or not knowing too much about recycling, you can just look at this picture and try to understand how much of this material will now be able to from a recycling perspective, to support us in the development we have in front of us or ahead of us. And it should also be mentioning that we have, of course, been recycling. So I mean, a lot of the material that we are now placing on the market contains recycled materials. The material that has been reaching end of life over those years has not been recycled. They are there. So they are not still there in a pool. Some of it might be, but most of it actually have been recycled. Another thing is also that there is really, no other application there that's now stopped use. I mean, if it would be a lot of lithium, cobalt, nickel in the ICE vehicles, that would be great, because now we are stopping using them, and then we take those materials and then we are putting them into the new cars. But that's not the case. And in fact, all applications, maybe not really the portable side. I mean, portable side is growing. Yeah, all applications are growing, but the portable. But the portable are growing a little bit because we are now investing a lot in garden tools, in power tools. But when we look at the actual electronics, there is more of a decline. But there is really nothing really to take from. So if you say that, yeah, but we will take all these smartphones and we will put that into the cars. Yeah, you can do that, but chances are that we want smartphones also in the future, and that the manufacturers of smartphones also would like to use this kind of material. And this is only the beginning, because if we really look at what we are trying to accomplish here with the energy transition, we are really only in the beginning if we would replace all electric cars, all electric lorries, or lorries with electric, and also address the new applications which are enabled by batteries. So there will be a lot of materials out there. And in fact, every time you recycle a car today, if you recycle the battery in my car, that would only replace that very battery, because I would like to have a new car of that. So it doesn't really add to it. So until we are at 100% of adoption, recycling can't really solve this. Recycling can be important because, of course, we should not waste it, but it can't really solve it. So we have to get up to 100%, and then recycle can solve this for us. But then, what is the real circular economy? And that's really strange, that circular economy as a concept, when we started to talk about that 10, 15 years ago, the idea was to say that this is not only about recycling, but suddenly in the battery industry, it has been almost only about recycling. But the circular economy is really about reducing the need for material, like maybe everybody should not have a car, to share a car, like taking an Uber, or go with your neighbor, to repair, and to repair batteries, so like in this case, and also to reuse them, to repurpose them, so to keep them in the loop as long as possible, and eventually we can recycle it. And I was here yesterday, and we heard some questions about how many have electric cars and everything. So wasn't a lot of people. I won't ask now, but so maybe, I don't know. Maybe you think these are just these woke ideas. These are just the avocados. So people don't want to repair. People don't want to do that. I mean, we use it and then we throw it away and then we recycle it. But that is not really true. Because we have discussions today about reuse of batteries, like it's some kind of religion that you can believe in. But I don't really care what you believe in. I don't care about your opinion. And even not my opinion is important that either, because as long as the market is actually doing it, that is what I care about. And that is happening. Especially on the repair, remanufacturing. Basically, all OEMs are repairing and remanufacturing their batteries. We are reusing batteries. So the main application for reuse of batteries is to send it back to another vehicle. So a car dismantler that will get a crashed vehicle, but the battery is still fine, he will try to sell that to somebody that needs a batteries. As we have 8 years of warranties, not so many needs those batteries. That's a problem. So that also drives repurposing. And repurposing is not only like energy storage systems, it's also conversion of classic cars like this Beetle to electric cars, power banks, and a huge number of different applications. So the problem for the recycling industry is really about actually the value of the battery module. So here you have a Volkswagen e-Golf. It came out 2014. It has a 24 kilowatt hour battery inside, and it consists of these kind of modules. So I have one of them here. So, and I just want to know what do you offer me for this? It has about 1 kilo of NMC cathode inside it's an NMC 111, so it's an equal amount of nickel, cobalt, and manganese, and another third of lithium, or lithium carbonate equivalent in this. Anyone want it? It's quite heavy. It's like 6 kilos. If you want it, you have to pay at least $75. I would definitely not let it go for less than that. Which is a fairly good price, and it's a very good battery. I mean, it has almost kilowatt hours, 800 watt hours, and you can use that for a lot. I mean, you charge your computer, your iPhone, you can boil water for 5 hours with this one. You can connect it to a 150 watts solar cell, and basically you can run a small household of it. But it also contains a lot of materials. Right now, you would get $42 for the materials inside, but then you have to get those materials, of course, and everybody knows that it's a bit tricky. It's definitely possible, and it's done today, but it costs money, of course. So you won't be left with these $42. If I would like to sell this to somebody that will make black mass of it, what will that company get? Well, today he will get about $13 for that black mass. But then you also have to make black mass out of it, of course. So that's really the dilemma, that you have a lot of very high reuse values of most batteries because they're very useful. And yeah, in fact, you can actually use it as dumbbell because it's 6 kilos, it's quite heavy, as I said, and it's quite good value. It's better than black mass. Then we have another problem with lithium-ion batteries, is that they don't really live a life of their own. They are built into devices, so they really live the life of the devices or of the equipment, the applications where they sit. And going back now to the circular economy, most batteries are not subject to their circular economy. It's really the circular economy of phones, circular economy of cars. And that's a very different play. So if we take this Volkswagen e-Golf, it still has a very good value. If you take it in 2015 Volkswagen Golf, which if you look at many of the forecasts, they said that we have in 8 years we will get back the batteries. Yeah, then you have to take it back from that car that is worth around $15,000 if you want to take back the battery. And usually the cars are fine. I have 8 years old EV, and I have at least 95% of my battery left. But there is another thing to this, and you would also find a lot of these Volkswagen e-Golf in countries where they've never been sold, such as in Ukraine or in Jordan. I don't see if we see it so clearly here, but actually you can find many more in Ukraine than what you find in Germany or in the US where they've been sold. And this happens not least with the end-of-life vehicles like Teslas or others that if you crash them, increasingly they don't go to a car dismantler in the US or in Europe. They will be bought by a workshop in not least in Ukraine and will be put back on the road, which is great because that means that we still have a lot of electric vehicles on the road, but the recyclers in Europe or in the US will not get hold of the batteries. So battery recycling as such, where are we? I would say that there is a lot of room for improvement, but we have industrial processes, especially in China and South Korea, that are, especially when the metal prices are in a good environment, they are very profitable. Many of them are integrating reuse and recycling. And so they can definitely be more efficient, but basically most of the materials that you have in a battery today is, especially if prices are right, still lithium is fine, then they will be recycled. But we have this with capacity that we are building a lot of capacity. So we expect that in 2030, looking at the planned capacity right now, it's we are reaching over 3 million tons of capacity in recycling. And then we haven't really, I mean, obviously we will see a lot of announcements over time here as well. Actually, we haven't made our final update of China, and only this year I think they added, at least in planned capacity, about 1 million tons. That is much more than what we expect from the market. We expect in 2030 about around 900,000 tons on the global level to come from end-of-life batteries to be available for recycling, not for end-of-life as such, but for recycling. Then we add about the same amount of production scrap to that. But production scrap is quite interesting because obviously it's important for recyclers, but it's not really, you know, it's not the challenge to get to it. Like end-of-life batteries, then they are rewarded that you are doing something difficult. But in production scrap, you are dealing with a customer that knows exactly what this is worth, that is also incentivized to limit the scrap from production, of course. And the thing is, when in the US right now, and also actually in the battery directive, production scrap is considered as a resource that makes batteries better, which is from a circular standpoint very, very strange. And it doesn't add anything, obviously. I mean, if you scrap like 5 to 10% of your production, which is a lot, and we don't foresee that will continue, that means, first of all, that material has to come from somewhere else, obviously from mine materials. And again, when you then put it in a battery and run it through the production again, well, you will still have the same kind of scrap rate. So it doesn't really add anything, but it's business for the recyclers. Also, our view of this of the market is really that we believe that China will really dominate the automotive industry, which will tell us which kind of battery we will see, what kind of alliances, agreements we will see. We also think that the world wants to electrify, which means that there will always be market for reused batteries. And also, we believe that the technology is, the development is not really linear, that we will see a lot of other, a lot of events happening in the world. Or not from a technology standpoint, like here from wireless charging, battery swapping, other kind of initiatives that really makes this very hard to understand how much batteries will be there in the future. And I think that is a problem when we start to invest in recycling. Because to me, to invest in recycling in the way we are doing today, it's a little bit like blowing up a balloon and then keep it like this, and then release it and try to realize where it will end up. Because it's so plastic right now in the development that we are in. There is a lot of things we can do. Recycling is obviously very important, and it can be a very good business. But what is really important is obviously mining. We can charge our batteries faster, so we can use smaller batteries. Ubiquitous charging, wireless charging, adaptable battery swapping, where you don't always have a big battery, but sometimes a small, you can take the bike instead. Thank you very much.